Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. This is like maybe literally my favorite video to make on the channel, period. Today we're doing top 10 archetypes that should get support in 2024. Now, I kind of realized I made a mistake with this series in general. I kept kind of updating it every couple months. No updates. This is literally the one I'm making this year, and then I am backing off, and I'm just seeing what comes through, what doesn't. And we're going to go off of this list, and we're going to see all of 2024, how many of these I can nail. But these are some of the funnest videos I get to do. I love doing the research for it. I love just getting jazzed, thinking about the ideas of any of these 10 archetypes getting support in 2024, especially if Konami executes it well, and it's actually like good support. Konami's been doing a really good job of giving past archetypes support to allow them to compete in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! They've honestly been on a roll with that. And this is the perfect time to do it. I know you may say it's still November. You're talking about 2024. But listen, we have the first core set for next year already announced in Legacy of Destruction, and it already has its cover cards revealed. So in the next couple weeks, we're probably going to get into the actual reveals for that set. So I wanted to get this video out there before those start coming out, because there's definitely a good chance that any of these archetypes could be in there, and I didn't want to waste that opportunity. So this is the perfect time for it. Let's get into it. A couple honorable mentions before we get into it. Ancient Gear, Geargia, and what was the last one? Melodious were like the three that just barely made it, didn't make the list, but they were in contention when I was trying to figure out the last couple. So shout out to them if you're a big fan of those. Keep in mind they were close for me, and I did have reasons to put them on the list. But another thing in the past that I didn't love that I did was I honestly went off of feeling, and there's some of my favorite archetypes you guys know historically. I've thrown Magnet Warriors on these lists. But listen, I really don't think they have that great a chance right now this next year to get support. If they do, I'd be ecstatic, especially if it's good. But that was more cope than anything. This list is more so centered around archetypes I actually think have legitimate reason, have legitimate, like, you know, backup data in some way or fashion to kind of back up why they should get support, and hopefully that comes through here. So last thing I'll say before we get started here, let me know in the comment section down below what you would add or take away from this list as far as archetypes you think should, or not should, but like have a really good shot at getting support in 2024. I'd love to hear your guys' lists and what you think makes good sense there. But this is my list here. Let's finally get into it. Starting off here, Gusto. Number 10. These are not in order, by the way, or anything. This is just the ones I'm more least excited about to talk going into the most excited ones. But Gusto. This one's pretty plain and simple. There's a couple facts backing this one up. We got the Terminal World archetype, or core set in the OCG. It's like coming out very soon, or maybe it just came out. I can't remember what the date was on that. Anyway, I've heard so many people say that set is so cool because they executed the support for the 4 archetypes in there so well. I really like that. Plus, there's been multiple other dual terminal archetypes, Teller Knights, this past year, 2023, that have gotten support. So I actually think dual terminal archetypes are something I'm keeping an extra sharp eye on, because Konami seems to be going hard on them. And the possibility that if Terminal World is just such a really popular set in the OCG right now, and it does really well, what are the odds they do it again? We saw the Link Vrains packs go for 3 whole years in a row. Is there a world where they do 2 or 3 years of the Terminal World pack as kind of a replacement for that kind of set? That could be something really cool, and I think it's a possibility, and I think Gusto performing well in the OCG vote they did a while ago. It might have been a TCG vote. I can't remember off the top of my head what the vote was for, but it was like for a structure deck, essentially, I believe. And Gusto actually performed way better than most people really thought it would. So there's more Gusto fans out there than we thought. It proved it to Konami. They've probably been looking for a good way to make Gusto support soon here. So they did one like V-Jump promo, but I don't think that totally disqualifies this. I think Gusto is one of the premier dual terminal archetypes kind of lined up for support in 2024. So cool. Number 10, Gusto. Number 9, Crusadia. We've seen a little bit of Konami dancing around going back into the World Legacy lore and making new cards there. We just got a new trap card in the most recent set. I'm blanking on the name. The one that just came out in the TCG. I'm literally blanking on the name. But it had a trap card. It's not actually a World Legacy card or searchable, but it has the lore like artwork in it. Plus, we got like the Crawler card not that long ago. I don't think Konami's afraid to go in on the World Legacy archetypes, except for maybe a few like Orchist. I would assume they would worry about bringing Harp Horror off the ban list before they'd worry about giving that archetype support. But I think Crusadia is one of the fan favorite ones. I know there's a ton of people who love Crusadia. There was a time where it was a decent rogue deck, and I think it has a really solid setup. The Link 1 and Link 2 are good. There's just not a great spell or trap card to search for the archetype, just okay ones. And they could use like an actual normal summon that doesn't feel like it loses, like absolutely dies to a hand trap, like Formud Skipper could. But I think that deck's really cool. I actually think it's not that far away. If it got like 2 or 3 really nice cards, I've already done a video saying like an E-Tally for this archetype would be perfect. It's a lore. It's part of lore, which I think always gives an archetype more credence for like Konami to go ahead and give them support, because it's tied into a bunch of extra stuff, and it just gives them more reason to back it up. And the lore archetypes tend to be more popular among players anyway. I think Crusadias have a decent chance. So I think Crusadias here at number 9 is a pretty good one for 2024 support. But we'll see. Moving on, number 8, Burning Abyss. I've kind of shied away from this one on a lot of my lists in the past. I just think we're hitting that point where it's finally hitting as like it's truly been power crept. This archetype is not good enough. We're seeing now like Phantom Knight builds are even leaving this package in the dust. It's just not good enough. It's too bricky, whatever. Plus, when was the last time we saw like pure Burning Abyss decks? Like the trap versions like 2+ years ago? This deck is totally power crept. But there's no denying it. This archetype has some really powerful cards. Some good extra deck stuff between Cherubini, Dante, and Beatrice, as well as some of their main deck cards are really good. But their own cards don't get you enough. So is there a world where they give them like one more main deck card, one more extra deck card, because this is one of those archetypes that's close enough where that's all it would need? I talked forever about how Tallarknights deserve support because they were such a nostalgic fan favorite archetype. People love the aesthetic. Well, people love this dark aesthetic of Burning Abyss. And as far as like a meta nostalgia archetype, this one like triples that of Tallarknights. Like this archetype, I know so many people that like love Burning Abyss. I only know a few people who love Tallarknights, even though I think like it was still enough to make Tallarknights desirable for support. It's not tied into any lore. It's a TCG exclusive, which I don't always think helps them want to make more support for it. But I think it's just such a huge fan favorite archetype, and it's been power crept out, and it feels like we're in the perfect time. Cherubini is really the only BA card we've gotten in like the last like 6 years. So and it's not even been abused in BA that much. It's been abused in other decks way more. I totally think it's the perfect time for Konami to jump through with BA support. I think it's the perfect time. So I'm here for it. All right, that's number 8. Moving on to number 7 here, Magical Muskets. I'm really excited for this one. This is one of my fan favorite archetypes, my specific ones. Here's the thing. It kind of goes in with kind of the Magnet Warrior theme of everything I've talked about with them for a while. Magnet Warriors came out at the same time as ABCs. ABCs were made so much better right out the jump. Magnet Warriors were terrible. Then ABCs got more support recently that actually made them better, and Magnet Warriors didn't until after, and the support didn't do nearly enough to make them better. So we look at Magical Muskets. Now, Magical Muskets have performed better than Weather Painters, which are their counterpart to this point in terms of like the metagame. But I think it's important to note that like they both came out, they got their initial support and their initial quick waves of support, and then a little bit later, they both got a trap card. The Weather Painter one was way better for them than Crooked Crown was for Magical Muskets. And then, go a little bit further, last year, like this calendar year, we got the 2 new Weather Painter cards. The new Link 3, which is just okay, but the Field Spell is incredible. The Field Spell is really amazing for them. They're literally like one good card away from being like a legit rogue deck for years, but they're just not there yet. Magical Muskets, though, have got nothing. Now they got Max, but Max is now 4 years old, so okay, whatever. That's not even like a huge thing for me. So now we're sitting here and I'm going, where's the Magical Musket support to kind of balance out the fact that Weather Painters got the most recent support and it was actually pretty good? So I actually think they're just due to deck build pack archetype. Konami loves to round about and give deck build pack archetypes due support there. So I'd love to see it. They definitely could use an engine spell card. They have like all these defensive spells and traps, but not like engine spells and traps. They would really, really love to see those. And maybe an actual boss monster would be nice for them too. But yeah, they're really cool. I just think a lot of people like this archetype. I know they do. And I think because it's kind of been lagging behind the Weather Painter support, they should be due for a wave of like 2 or 3 cards here soon. But just a guess, this one, not a ton of data supporting it, but I still think it has a decent shot of getting it soonish. Next up, L-Swarms, or Evil Swarms specifically. This is the only other dual terminal archetype I have on here. A lot of same bases as Gusto, right? Dual terminal's been going really hard right now. If they do Terminal World 2 in 2024, this could be a good archetype to throw in there. And they're just giving dual terminal archetypes like support outside of that set anyway, so it could definitely end up in a core set or some side set anyway. Last thing that I want to note here, as far as something that I think is really, really interesting, this is like kind of like Tellarknights, where there's Tellarknights and there's Constellars. There's two different archetypes that they can make support for at the same time, and it almost just gives Konami more incentive to go ahead and make that support because they can hit two different fan bases at the same time. Same thing here, and to a lesser degree, because like not many people like Steel Swarms, but I do hear people talk about Evil Swarms, but it does let you hit a second fan base, a more casual fan base, albeit, but at the same time. And so that adds a little bit of extra viability to this one, because then Konami could knock out two different like dual terminal archetypes to get support at the same time with one wave of like 4 cards. This archetype needs spells and it needs better main deck monsters, but the traps and extra monsters are actually pretty clean. So I think this would be a good one, a really prime one for dual terminal support in 2024. Pretty basic. All right, top 5. Here we go. Atlanteans. This one is pretty simple as well. I think it's possible Konami could just throw them into a core set, like support for Atlanteans in a core set. This archetype has not gotten much like at all. I think they got a Link monster at some point, the Link 2, but it's like, it's one, it's not great, and 2, it's like barely even Atlantean support. Like it's just so mid for Atlanteans. It's more of a water good stuff archetype, but it's like meh. It's so meh. Like Haki Fibrax was a better like card for Atlanteans than that. Anyway, I digress. The point with Atlanteans more than anything, Structure Deck R in the OCG. This is their series where they go through and they're redoing Structure Decks in chronological order from the past. They skipped 2 Structure Decks. They skipped the Dragon's Legion, the like Chaos Dragon Structure Deck, and they skipped Atlanteans to go to Fire Kings because 2023 is the year of fire. So they kind of want to jump into the fire one. Now, it's not guaranteed. Konami's not said anything that they're going back to do the ones they skipped. But if they are, because they just wanted to skip the Fire Kings to get it out in 2023, I think it's entirely possible they skip Dragon's Legion because we get Chaos support literally every year. We got Bestials last year. We got Chaos Angel and the cover cards from that set. Like, we did not, like, you know what I mean? Like, we get Chaos stuff every year. If they make a full-on Dragon Chaos structure deck again, Dragon Link's already, like, tier 1.5 still. Like, how broken would that be with 8 new cards there? I just don't think that makes sense. So I think there is a good chance they do Atlanteans as their 2024 Structure Deck R series. I really think it has a good shot. So I think Atlantean sits there in a good position. There's also the possibility that if they chose 2023 to be the year of fire, is there a world where they pick a new archetype for 2024? Water, wind, some of the other 2 like lesser attributes, and go from there? Could be. And if it's water, Atlantean just has the possibility of just getting it elsewhere. So I really like Atlantean. I think it has a good shot. I think Mermail could also kind of be thrown in here because they work together so much. They're almost just one archetype at this point. But yeah, go ahead and throw them in. Number 4, Mageus. I've been talking about this one for a while too. Konami has been going back and circling around for some of these archetypes that are not super old, but like within 3 to 5 years old, and giving them nice support. We saw with Unchained this year. We saw with Infernoble this year. Those are perfect prime examples of Konami going back and hitting those not so old archetypes and making them legit meta contenders again. Mageus is an interesting one. It's never been meta. It's never been anything like that, but it is a really interesting archetype in that it's tied lore-wise to all of the other good spellcaster archetypes. Endymion, Mageus, not Mageus, Witchcrafter. I said Endymion, Spellbooks, and also like Invoked. All 4 of those archetypes are kind of tied in with here lore-wise. It is with their cards, the designs, all that stuff, it's tied in. And so if they wanted to support all of those archetypes kind of together, there's a world where they could make Mageus some sort of splashable package for spellcaster decks to kind of give them that support. And that gives them the incentive to help like 4 or 5 different fan bases, Spellbooks, Invoked, Endymion, you know what I mean? Everything all at once by only making a couple of new Mageus cards. I think it's been kind of on deck for a while. I'm kind of surprised they haven't done it yet. I think 2024 makes good sense to do it. So I have Mageus here at number 4. I'd love to see this. Plus, we've also kind of been floating just on the precipice, it feels like, of actually getting to like a legit competitive, playable, like spellcaster good stuff deck. It just feels like we haven't had it all the way there yet, and Mageus feels like the perfect archetype of like the main spellcaster engines to tie it all together, to actually pull them together, because there are a handful of solid, spellcaster engines. They're just missing some connecting pieces to really tie it all together. So that would be so cool, and hopefully Konami does that, because I think that would be so cool. Top 3. Here we go. Cyber Dragons. This is the one basic bitch one that I have on the entire list here. I'm not gonna lie to you. When I think about Cyber Dragons, there's a couple reasons I like this one for this year. One, if after Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, and Heroes, I'm not sure I can confidently say there's another archetype that I feel 100% confident saying is more popular than Cyber Dragon. Like, this may be the 4th most popular archetype in the entire game. Second thing, this archetype has not gotten an actual Cyber Dragon support card in 5 years. 2018 is the last time we got a new Cyber Dragon card. Legitimately. We've gotten Cyber Dark support, not Cyber Dragon support. So 5 years removed from the support, I think this archetype is viable to be a cover, like a core set cover archetype support. That gives it big levels of like viability to be picked here. I also think there's a world where a structure deck is possible. It's just such a huge, fan popular structure deck. It could be just a new structure deck they do, or it could be it could even be a structure deck R, because as much as I talked about Atlanteans, if they choose not to go back, the next 2 structure decks would be Blue Eyes and Cyber Dragon. Now, we get Blue Eyes support like every year, so it's possible Konami goes, we're going to give them Blue Eyes elsewhere. We don't need to make a whole structure deck for it. Let's skip to Cyber Dragon because they haven't gotten support in 5 years. So I even think there is a small chance they could actually get the structure deck R this year as well. So there's multiple avenues where Cyber Dragons could be thrown in here. I just think for arguably a top 5 fan favorite archetype in the entire game, and it hasn't got support in 5 years, like, what are we doing here? This one should be on everybody's list, I feel like. So that's just me, but Cyber Dragon's number 3. Moving on to number 2, Trickstar. I've talked about this one somewhat recently too. I've even made videos about what kind of support I'd like to see for Trickstars. It's just their time. Kind of a little bit similar to Burning Abyss. Like, they are totally power crept. They're just so weak. They don't do anything. There's no payoff to Trickstars anymore. I mean, I guess you have inconsistent Droll reincarnation possibilities, and I guess depending on the type of support you make for them, you could make that more possible, but hopefully that wouldn't be the case. Whatever support they give for them, they could steer it away from doing Droll reincarnation type shenanigans, hopefully. But listen, I think there's a really good possibility that the Legendary Duelist this year, or Duelist pack in the OCG, is light-based. We've gotten, in this order, Dark, Wind, Water, Earth, Fire. Those 5. The only one we're missing from the main attributes in the game is Light. If Light is the Legendary Duelist this year, I think Trickstar is the most likely archetype to end up in there. Oh, that's another reason, by the way, going back real quick, why Cyber Dragon. If they do a light one, it's also not entirely off the table. Cyber Dragon could end up in there as well. Anyway, if that is a thing, I think Trickstar is literally the most likely archetype to end up in there. It's same exact thing as why I thought Marine Cess was the most likely water archetype to end up in the Water Legendary Duelist, and it did. Same thing. Popular character. It's a cute girl archetype that a lot of people really like, and has a little bit of meta nostalgia for some people who really like the archetype. And I think people would be pretty psyched if they got 7 new cards in a light Legendary Duelist pack. So, yeah, I think this one actually has some pretty good credence. But if we find out, like, tomorrow that the next Legendary Duelist isn't light-based, then throw this one out the window. I mean, it could still just end up in a core set or something this year, but it definitely cuts its chances, like, by a lot. So keep that in mind. That's number 2, which takes us to our final archetype here. This one should be no surprise to anyone. I love this archetype. I love talking about this archetype. Subterra. This is my number 1 archetype here by far. I love this archetype. I think this archetype is so cool. The designs for it are so cool. Thematically, the way they make the cards work is so cool. And so many people love it. I know so many people love it because I still see people trying to top with this deck even today at regional tournaments. So, listen, it needs help. And I think the stigma behind it hasn't helped it to this point, of people hating that it became like a Dragoon Floodgatey type deck. But that's the thing. That's why people grumble about me saying give us Subterra support, because it's like, no, forget that stun garbage. Like, don't support that deck. But if the support is actually good enough and gives them engine pieces that they actually want to utilize consistently, and it's good enough, people will steer away from Dragoon. Don't play the bricks. Don't play that package that locks you out of being able to actually like push your engine if the engine's actually good enough. So turn this deck from a stun deck into an actual mid-range deck with a couple of support cards. People love this archetype. I know they do. I've talked to so many people about how they love this archetype so much. And I just think it deserves it. I mean, I don't know. This one, if you're talking about likelihood, maybe should be towards the lower end of the list, just because there's no real reason to believe it should be in any specific set here or there like we do with some of the other ones. But I just think in terms of how many people like this archetype and how long it's been since it got a support card, like realistically, when was the last time it actually got a card where it was like, well, we're playing that now? Like literally Guru. Like we got Guru and then people played it, and then we have not gotten an actual playable Subterra card since Guru. How long ago is that? Is that 5 years? So I don't know. I think for the popularity of this archetype, it's coming up. It feels like this one feels like Tellarknights to me too, and just that it's the archetype to me almost as good as any other one, where it feels like it's getting to a boiling point of like it's been power crept for sure. Even when it does see play, it's played in a super gross, you know what I mean, like just icky way, and they could totally turn that on its head by actually giving Subterra like some actual decent support to turn into a good mid-range deck. So we'll see. Oh my god, if this one got revealed, I would, oh man, my video, I wouldn't even be able to talk. So look out for that if that ever gets revealed. But yeah, those are my top 10 archetypes there. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on this list. Any other archetypes that you would have put on this list instead of the ones I have here. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts here. Like I said, no adjustments. I'm not adjusting anything at any time next year for this type of list. I'm going to run with these 10 archetypes. We'll see how many we hit on during the year of 2024, and we can come back and look at it. If I get 50%, I'd actually think that's pretty good. If we get over 50, then I'm like, I'm money. And even if I only get 2 or 3, if they're the right ones, I'll still be happy. But yeah, that's my list here, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one down the line. And let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. I'm out of here for today, though. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.